The man had been leading a double life for quite some time, regularly meeting another woman and frequenting social events like parties and upscale restaurants almost every week. To put it simply, he was perpetually unfaithful to Mrs. Diana, exploiting her wealth and the company's corporate card to lavishly spoil his mistress with outrageously expensive gifts. The elderly Mrs. Diana, who had dedicated herself to their marriage and her husband's success, was left heartbroken and devastated when she uncovered the depth of his betrayal. Her anguish was not just in the tears that flowed freely, but in the profound sense of disillusionment that came with discovering incriminating photos and bank transactions. Her trust had been irreparably damaged, and the hope she had harbored for a renewed sense of happiness in her life had turned into an overwhelming disaster. She felt more used and deceived than she had ever imagined possible. As she grappled with the betrayal, Mrs. Diana found herself questioning how she had been so blind to the deceit. How could he do this to me, she wondered, reflecting on her naivety and how she had been misled by the allure and charm of a handsome young man who had feigned love and devotion. The sadness of confronting the reality of her life weighed heavily on her, but she knew that she could not simply let this injustice go unanswered. Fueled by a resolve for retribution, she began plotting her strategy to make the selfish and deceitful Samuel face the consequences of his actions. Her initial step was to take immediate and decisive action. She blocked all of his credit cards and cut off his access to the company's resources, all without giving him any prior warning. Before we begin, I'll give it a thumbs up. If you like the video, you can help me continue to spread this story. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't like it, comment 0 to let me know so I can make a better video for you. Now, let's get started. The first time Samuel attempted to use the corporate card to cover the cost of a lavish dinner with his mistress, it was declined. Bewildered and frustrated, he initially joked that it must have been a mistake by the card issuer and accused the restaurant employee of an error. When his other cards also failed on subsequent attempts, the atmosphere grew tense and awkward, with embarrassment hanging heavily in the air. The reality of his situation began to set in, but the full impact of Mrs. Diana's retaliation had only just begun to unfold. Samuel Johnson, a young man with devious intentions, crafted a plan to marry a wealthy elderly woman to execute a scam and gain access to her fortune. At just 23 years old, Samuel had always harbored a disdain for work and preferred to live off the support of his parents as long as possible. When his parents realized that he was on a path to perpetual dependence, they pressured him to secure a job and move out. Samuel eventually found employment at a cafe, but his performance was far from stellar. He routinely arrived late and exhibited a lack of courtesy towards customers, displaying a general disregard for his responsibilities. Deep down, Samuel was profoundly dissatisfied with his life. He yearned for the wealth that would allow him to indulge in expensive clothes and luxury experiences, but his financial situation left him perpetually broke. His aversion to spending his meager earnings from the cafe job led him to rely on others to cover his bills and indulgences. Despite his physical attractiveness, he struggled to find a woman willing to support him in this way. Samuel's life was a monotonous cycle of commuting between his home and his job, punctuated by a sense of dissatisfaction and unfulfilled desires. Everything began to shift when an unexpected customer visited the cafe, disrupting Samuel's routine. Unlike the everyday patrons who hurriedly grabbed their coffee and moved on, this customer stood out. A luxurious car pulled up outside the cafe, and a chauffeur stepped out to open the rear door, signaling the arrival of an important guest. Out emerged an elderly woman with white hair and noticeable wrinkles, wearing her age with dignity and elegance. Despite her advanced years, she was impeccably dressed and moved with a sense of purpose. She walked straight into the cafe, patiently waiting in line without any pretense. Samuel's curiosity was piqued by this distinguished woman, and as he observed her, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of intrigue and apprehension. Little did he know that this encounter would set in motion a series of events that would challenge his preconceived notions and test his schemes in ways he had never anticipated. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Samuel went about his duties with the usual efficiency, serving customer after customer with hardly a glance up from his work. He was accustomed to the routine and the constant stream of faces that passed through his line of sight. However, on this particular afternoon, a peculiar twist of fate caused him to look up, and as he did, he found himself locking eyes with a woman of remarkable sophistication. She was impeccably dressed in an elegant outfit that spoke of wealth and refinement, her presence further emphasized by the discreet but unmistakable security personnel accompanying her. Samuel's trained eye recognized immediately that this was no ordinary customer. A shift in his demeanor was instantaneous. The effortless, automatic smile that had been his constant companion now turned into a more practiced, polished version. He greeted her with a carefully rehearsed, "Good afternoon, how may I assist you on this beautiful day?" The woman, with an air of calm authority, simply requested a plain espresso for herself and a tea for her driver. At that moment, Samuel's approach transformed. He processed their order with unprecedented efficiency and a personal touch, fetching the items himself rather than delegating the task. How he carried out his duties was nothing short of extraordinary. His every movement conveyed a level of attentiveness and skill that was unusual for him. As he handed over the steaming cups, he managed to slip in a subtle yet charming flirtation, leaving her with a hint of flattery. But Samuel's ambitions didn't end with a mere interaction. As he gazed earnestly into her eyes, he ventured to express his aspirations. "You know," he said, "it's evident that you're a successful businesswoman. I was wondering if you might consider giving me an opportunity. I'm open to any role that could help me advance my career. I feel like my potential is being underutilized here." The woman, taken aback by this unexpected pitch during what had seemed like a simple coffee run, took a moment to assess Samuel. His dedication and earnestness were apparent, and she felt a sense of goodwill toward him. Without hesitation, she reached into her purse and produced a business card, presenting it to him with a gentle smile before departing. The card bore her name and her professional contact details. As Samuel looked down at the card in his hand, a surge of excitement coursed through him. For the first time in a long while, he felt a renewed sense of hope and optimism about his future, energized by the possibility of a new opportunity on the horizon. The following morning, Samuel decided to finally call the number he had received. As he dialed, he heard a professional voice answer, "Miss Diana's office. How may I assist you?" With a mix of anticipation and nervousness, Samuel began to explain his situation and the reason for his call. The secretary, who seemed both efficient and courteous, listened carefully and then confirmed that Miss Diana had indeed been informed of his impending call and was expecting him. She promptly scheduled a job interview for the next day at 4 p.m. Despite not knowing the exact position he was applying for, Samuel eagerly accepted the appointment without hesitation or question. Determined to make a strong impression, Samuel arrived at the office even before it officially opened. He waited patiently until he could make himself heard by Miss Diana, the very same woman he had encountered at the cafe and who owned the office. Although it was not her usual practice to conduct interviews personally, Miss Diana was so taken aback by Samuel's persistence and enthusiasm that she decided to make an exception to her usual routine. Miss Diana found herself genuinely impressed by Samuel. It was not just his appearance that caught her attention, but rather his exceptional communication skills and the intense focus he exhibited towards his goals. His demeanor, combined with his polished dress and the way he carried himself with the grace of a true gentleman, left a significant impression on her. Miss Diana was confident that Samuel would be an asset to her team and thus directed him to the sales department of her office. This department was responsible for the challenging task of going door to door to offer their products. Miss Diana, despite her lack of personal interest in sports or business, was an extraordinary leader. She managed one of the largest sports equipment sales networks in the country with remarkable success. She had inherited the business from her late husband, the founder, about 13 years prior. Despite having no prior business experience and initially being quite inexperienced, Ms. Diana had managed to elevate the company to unprecedented heights. This remarkable turnaround led everyone to believe that she possessed an innate talent for managing the business, a talent that seemed almost intuitive given her background. Samuel had only a vague understanding of Miss Diana's personal history, but pieced together a narrative from the old photographs adorning the walls of her elegant home. Each framed image featured Miss Diana in the company of a man who appeared to be of a similar age, suggesting a long-standing relationship. The absence of a wedding ring on her slender finger was another clue he noted, adding to his deductions. Though Miss Diana maintained a graceful appearance, her age was unmistakable, and Samuel estimated her to be over 70 years old. In his calculations, Samuel saw an opportunity. He believed that given her advanced years and visible signs of aging, she likely had only a few years left. He planned to charm and seduce the elderly woman, gradually making her fall in love with him. His ultimate goal was to marry her, bide his time until her death, and then inherit her considerable wealth and the vast conglomerate of companies she had built. The young man felt no pangs of guilt over his deceitful intentions. To him, Miss Diana's kindness in offering him a job was nothing more than a stepping stone in his pursuit of wealth and status. The prospect of lying and manipulating her for a few years was a small price to pay for the immense reward he anticipated. Samuel was driven by shallow desires for money and social standing, and his plan seemed to be proceeding smoothly. Samuel's dedication to the scheme was evident in his work ethic. Despite his lack of professional experience, he took on the role of a salesman with surprising enthusiasm. His efforts yielded impressive results. He managed to secure 2 major clients for the company, a feat that astonished everyone, including Miss Diana. His demeanor was impeccable, marked by an affable and courteous manner that won over clients and colleagues alike. His success in bringing valuable contracts to the company promised significant profits, which would undoubtedly earn him further favor from Miss Diana. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Recognizing Samuel's contributions, Miss Diana decided to reward him with a dinner at one of the city's most prestigious restaurants. She hoped that this gesture would encourage him to maintain his excellent performance. During the dinner, Samuel was at his most charming. He lavished Miss Diana with compliments and affection, and his efforts quickly bore fruit. The elderly woman, captivated by his handsome looks and engaging demeanor, responded warmly to his advances. As they dined, their conversation flowed freely. Samuel spun tales of his fictitious work journey, while Miss Diana shared anecdotes about her company's founding and the global adventures she had experienced with her late husband. A few weeks into their growing acquaintance, as their outings became more frequent and their bond deepened, Samuel decided to escalate his plan. He carefully selected a moment when Miss Diana seemed particularly content and relaxed, and with a calculated blend of charm and confidence, he asked her to be his girlfriend. The look of astonishment on Miss Diana's face was palpable. Despite their regular interactions, Samuel had always maintained a respectful distance and never suggested anything beyond friendship. The notion of transitioning from a professional relationship to a romantic one was entirely unexpected for her. Miss Diana hesitated at first, feeling that it would be inappropriate for a boss to date an employee. However, Samuel, with his persuasive and determined demeanor, managed to convince her to reconsider. After a prolonged and heartfelt conversation, she reluctantly agreed, driven by his earnestness and her underlying feelings. The elderly woman was taken aback that a young man like Samuel would be interested in her, but the happiness she felt was overwhelming. She accepted his proposal with a sense of excitement and celebrated their newfound relationship with great joy, extending the festivities well into the night. For Samuel, this was a pivotal moment in his scheme. With the relationship officially in place, he knew the next phase would require meticulous care to avoid revealing his true motives. He committed himself wholeheartedly to the relationship, showering Miss Diana with affection and taking her to exclusive places she had never before experienced. Samuel showed her the hidden gems of the city and took her to tourist attractions he had always yearned to visit but never had the financial means to enjoy. The attentive and romantic gestures from Samuel began to have a profound impact on Miss Diana. As she ventured into new experiences and met fascinating people alongside him, she felt a renewed sense of vitality and joy. Samuel's presence in her life rekindled her enthusiasm for living, something she had not felt in many years. Her late husband, who had been more focused on his business than on their relationship, had not been the most attentive spouse. He had chosen not to have children, undergoing a vasectomy early in their marriage to avoid potential complications, leaving Miss Diana without heirs. After his death, she had become increasingly isolated, dedicating herself solely to her business and retreating from social connections. In contrast, Samuel's influence brought a new dimension to her life. Although Miss Diana had always been devoted to her late husband and his legacy, the companionship and care she received from Samuel were transformative. As she embraced this new chapter, she felt more alive than she had in years, unknowingly falling deeper into the trap Samuel had meticulously set. Miss Diana, renowned for her composed and practical nature, decided to indulge in an extravagant gesture far removed from her usual behavior. She rented the most luxurious penthouse in the city for an entire weekend, an opulent choice that was entirely out of character for her. With a sense of mystery and excitement, she invited Samuel to join her, keeping the purpose of the invitation a secret. When Samuel arrived at the hotel, he was stunned to find himself being transported by helicopter, a first for him. The experience was both exhilarating and bewildering, as he had never imagined such a dramatic entrance into a new chapter of his life. Waiting for him at the penthouse was Miss Diana, who greeted him warmly and led him inside. After a brief period of small talk and settling in, Miss Diana made a decision that shocked them both. On the balcony of the penthouse, with a breathtaking view of the cityscape as their backdrop, she proposed to Samuel. This act of spontaneous romance was the most unconventional move she had ever made. Samuel, taken aback by the unexpected turn of events, quickly accepted, his response filled with genuine surprise and joy. Seeing his affirmative reaction, Miss Diana was overwhelmed with happiness, her eyes filling with tears of emotion. While Samuel reveled in the unexpected success of his plan, a subtle shift began to occur. Despite his joy, Miss Diana had noticed his less than polished interaction with the hotel staff who greeted them. Although she initially dismissed it as a fleeting impression, it planted a seed of concern in her mind, making her more vigilant about Samuel's future behavior. Unbeknownst to her, Samuel had been indulging in a lavish lifestyle far beyond what she had anticipated. Since their relationship began, he had been spending substantial amounts on designer clothes and extravagant watches, living as if he were already a millionaire. His transformation was so complete that anyone observing him might believe he was born into wealth rather than adapting to it. Miss Diana, who seldom scrutinized her financial statements meticulously, had been unaware of the full extent of Samuel's expenditures. However, her bank manager had taken note of the unusual spending patterns and felt compelled to reach out. Concerned about the integrity of her finances, the manager contacted Miss Diana to confirm whether these transactions were indeed authorized and to ensure that everything was in order. This unexpected call prompted her to reassess her financial situation and Samuel's influence on it. marking the beginning of a deeper scrutiny of her new fiancé's behavior and spending habits. Despite her impressive wealth accumulated over the decades, Diana's beginnings were far from glamorous. Born into poverty in a small, humble village deep in the interior of her country, Diana's early life was characterized by struggle and resilience. From a young age, she demonstrated an extraordinary work ethic, engaging in various jobs to support herself and her family. Before her late husband's business began to flourish, Diana worked tirelessly in numerous professions, providing for her household while her husband worked on his business venture, which for years existed merely as a concept on paper. During this time, Diana's unwavering support was instrumental. She contributed part of her salary to fund her husband's entrepreneurial dreams, believing wholeheartedly in his vision. Her belief in his perseverance and potential was unshakable, and her sacrifices were driven by the conviction that his hard work would eventually pay off. Her faith was not misplaced. After years of relentless effort and dedication, the company began to turn a profit. The woman who had once spent countless hours washing and ironing clothes for others found herself becoming the majority shareholder of a thriving enterprise. Following the tragic and untimely death of her husband, Diana assumed sole ownership of the vast business empire they had built together. Despite her newfound wealth and success, she remained remarkably grounded. Diana's focus was solely on the growth and sustainability of her business. She chose not to indulge in the luxuries she could have easily afforded. Houses, cars, and jewelry were of little interest to her. Instead, she maintained a simple lifestyle, investing all her resources back into the business and surrounding herself only with the basic comforts she truly needed. Diana's story is a testament to her extraordinary resilience, dedication, and the genuine commitment she had to both her husband's dreams and her own. Her journey from humble beginnings to becoming a leading figure in the business world is marked by her unwavering determination and selfless spirit. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Extravagant gestures, such as renting a luxurious hotel suite or arranging for a helicopter to pick up Samuel, were almost unheard of for Miss Diana. Yet, despite the grandeur of some aspects of their relationship, the wedding itself was remarkably understated. There were no grand festivities or elaborate celebrations. It was simply a modest dinner held at her home. The simplicity of the event contrasted sharply with the recent high-profile withdrawals from her bank account, which had caught the attention of her bank manager. He had never witnessed such substantial sums leaving her account before, prompting him to call and ensure everything was in order. It was during this period that Miss Diana's initial trust in her new husband began to waver. Her growing unease was fueled by his long, unexplained phone calls and frequent absences from home. Doubts crept into her mind, leading her to fear that Samuel might be more interested in her wealth than in her as a person. Anxiety gnawed at her, and she increasingly questioned whether she had made a grave mistake in marrying him. In search of clarity and peace of mind, Miss Diana resolved to hire a private detective through a trusted friend. The detective's assignment was to shadow Samuel and document his daily movements and activities. For weeks, the detective observed Samuel's behavior, carefully noting his routines and interactions. When the detailed report finally arrived, Miss Diana was stunned by the findings. The report revealed that Samuel had not been attending his new assignment at the company's other branch, despite his claims of going to work each day. Instead, he had been spending his time elsewhere, all while maintaining the facade of a diligent employee. This revelation confirmed Miss Diana's worst fears and left her grappling with the unsettling truth about her husband's true intentions. The man had been living a double life, regularly meeting another woman and attending parties in high-end restaurants almost every week. In essence, he was constantly betraying Mrs. Diana, exploiting her wealth, and using the company's corporate card to shower his lover with outrageously expensive gifts. When Mrs. Diana discovered the extent of his infidelity through damning photos and bank transactions. The emotional impact was profound. Her tears were a mere reflection of the deep betrayal and shattered trust she felt. Her attempts to find joy and rebuild her happiness had been in vain, leaving her feeling more used and deceived than ever before. How could he do this to me? She questioned herself, grappling with the painful realization of her naivety. She reflected on how she had been blinded by the allure and charm of a young man who had turned out to be nothing more than a deceitful opportunist. Despite the overwhelming sadness of facing this harsh reality, Diana knew she could not let this betrayal go unanswered. Fueled by a sense of determination and the need for justice, she devised a plan to confront the deceitful Samuel. Her first course of action was to block all his credit cards and sever his connection with the company, all without informing him of her decision. The first indication of her retaliation came when Samuel attempted to use the corporate card to cover a lavish dinner with his mistress. To his dismay, the card was declined. Initially incredulous, Samuel joked that it must have been an error on the part of the card issuer and placed the blame on the restaurant employee. He quickly pulled out another card, but after 3 failed attempts, the situation grew increasingly tense and awkward. The atmosphere in the restaurant was charged with embarrassment. "I bet this is due to some incompetence on your part," Samuel snapped at the bewildered waiter, who had apologized and assured him that the issue would be resolved. When the manager arrived to address the situation, he inquired whether Samuel had any cash to cover the bill. In a state of desperation, Samuel tried to contact Mrs. Diana, but his calls went unanswered. Faced with the threat of police involvement and the prospect of spending the night in jail, Samuel had no choice but to leave his identification and cell phone with the manager. He promised to return the following day to settle the outstanding bill. Furious and bewildered by the recent developments, Samuel confronted Miss Diana about the troubling issue with her credit card. Despite his attempts to mask his irritation, his frustration was evident. Diana, maintaining her composure, suggested that it might be a banking error and assured him she would resolve it the following day. However, this situation marked a turning point for Diana. Seeing Samuel's true colors without the veil of enchantment, she recognized his genuine nature, one marked by deceit and disregard. Her heart sank as she realized that his affection and charm were merely a facade. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Determined to address the situation with the gravity it deserved, Diana decided to act swiftly. Instead of merely addressing the credit card issue, she took a decisive step to protect her assets and legacy. She visited the bank to make significant changes to her marriage contract and inheritance arrangements. With no children and her family already deceased, her estate was solely under her control, managed confidentially with her lawyer and bank manager. Diana's intent was clear. She wanted to ensure her wealth and businesses would be safeguarded from Samuel's potential exploitation. However, fate intervened cruelly. Diana had been fighting a battle with cancer for nearly 3 years, and her health had deteriorated to the point where her time was running out. She understood that her life was drawing to a close and took steps to prepare for her final departure. Before her passing, she left a heartfelt letter with her devoted driver. In it, she bid a poignant farewell and outlined her final instructions, ensuring that her wishes would be executed even in her absence. As Diana's condition worsened, Samuel began to portray himself as a grieving widower. He donned an expensive black suit and sunglasses, attempting to mask his emotions and present a facade of sorrow. The funeral became a spectacle, with Samuel conspicuously performing his role amidst a crowd of company employees and shareholders who were anxiously awaiting the reading of Diana's will. As per Diana's instructions, the will was read during the funeral, surrounded by a gathering of concerned parties keen on understanding the future of her businesses. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and uncertainty, as everyone waited to see how Diana's final wishes would shape the fate of her legacy. The will commenced with a heartfelt expression of gratitude from Diana for everyone's presence. It conveyed her deep-seated belief that she would now find true happiness in the afterlife, reunited with her late husband for eternity. This announcement cast a palpable shadow of discomfort over the room, with all eyes unavoidably shifting towards Samuel. Regarding her company, Diana had decreed that it would be divided equally among the current shareholders. She acknowledged their steadfast support and the robust guidance of the board, expressing her confidence that they would continue to steer the company towards success. Her decision was clear and reflected her deep trust in those who had helped build and sustain the business. Yet the will revealed a turn of events that no one had anticipated. Despite the common belief in her innocence and lack of awareness regarding certain matters, Diana had been an astute investor for years, with impressive profits from various stakes and the sale of companies she had helped establish. However, all of this wealth was not to be directed towards personal gain. Instead, it was earmarked for the creation of a non-profit organization dedicated to providing shelter for street children. This organization would cover not only their accommodation, food, and clothing until they turned 18, but also ensure their education at prestigious universities and offer them guaranteed positions within one of her companies. As the reading of the will progressed, Samuel's expression hardened with the same rage and bitterness he had displayed the previous day. He was dismayed to learn that he would not receive any share of the company or its fortune. He awaited the fate of the properties and vehicles, which combined represented a fortune that could support him for the rest of his life. To his astonishment, however, all these assets were to be sold, and the proceeds would be donated to existing charities. Samuel's frustration and anger were evident as he processed the unexpected and seemingly harsh reality of his inheritance. His anticipated wealth, which had promised to secure his future, was being redirected to causes far beyond his control or benefit. When the will was finally read, Samuel's anticipation reached a fever pitch. The late Mrs. Diana had expressed her deep gratitude to Samuel, acknowledging the significant role he had played in her final days. According to the will, Samuel had enriched her life in extraordinary ways through breathtaking experiences, visits to stunning locations, and interactions with people and things she had never imagined. Mrs. Diana had conveyed her heartfelt appreciation for the joy he brought her and the happiness she believed she had given him in return. As a gesture of thanks, Mrs. Diana had left Samuel a crucial item, a key that, as outlined in the will, would unlock a safe deposit box in the country's most prestigious bank. A sly smile crept across Samuel's face at the thought of finally coming into possession of valuable assets, perhaps jewelry, a rare collection, or real estate deeds. The guests applauded him, likely assuming that Samuel had secured the lion's share of Mrs. Diana's inheritance. The days rolled by, and Samuel, having liquidated the properties and vehicles he had acquired, finally made his way to the bank to claim his long-awaited prize. Upon arrival, he was warmly greeted by the bank manager, who informed him that everyone was eagerly awaiting his presence. Samuel was escorted to the bank's most secure floor. For added privacy, the employees vacated the room, instructing Samuel to call them when he was ready to leave. His excitement was palpable as he approached the steel safe, his mind racing with thoughts of the treasures that awaited him. With trembling hands, he unlocked the safe, eager to see what lay inside. However, the sight that greeted him was not what he had expected. Inside the safe was an espresso cup, the very same one Samuel had used to serve Mrs. Diana on the day they first met. The coffee had long gone cold, and next to it lay a simple note that read, "Hope you enjoy the bitter taste. With love, your deceased wife." The message was clear and devastating. Mrs. Diana had known about Samuel's deceit from the very beginning. The espresso cup was a final, mocking gesture, a symbol of the betrayal and lies that Samuel had perpetrated. Instead of the wealth he had hoped for, Samuel was left with nothing more than a cold, bitter reminder of his greed and deceit. Samuel's world collapsed as he grasped the full extent of his failure. He was left exactly where he had started, without money, without a job, and with his reputation in tatters. His attempt to climb the social ladder had ended in utter disgrace. The humiliation he faced was public and profound. The scandal surrounding him spread throughout the city, and even the cafe where he had once worked refused to take him back. Mrs. Deanna, on the other hand, passed away content, cherishing the memories of her true soulmate, her late husband. Samuel, who had been nothing more than an opportunist, found himself with nothing but the bitter taste of defeat and the knowledge that he had failed to achieve the social elevation he so desperately sought. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 5 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And that concludes today's incredible story. We've journeyed through deception, manipulation, and the unforeseen consequences of greed and deceit. Samuel's tale is a powerful reminder of the lengths people can go to achieve their desires and the ultimate cost of living a life driven by selfish intentions. Reflecting on this story, what are your thoughts? What valuable lessons have you learned from Samuel's actions and the resulting outcomes? I encourage you to share your insights in the comments below. Let us know one significant takeaway from this story that you plan to incorporate into your own life. This story highlights the importance of genuine intentions and the value of integrity. By learning from these experiences, we can better navigate our own lives with honesty and authenticity. If you found this video engaging and thought-provoking, please leave your comment and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support not only motivates us but also helps us reach more people with impactful stories and valuable content. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the next video. Until then, take care and stay inspired.